Hello everyone, welcome back to Model Kit Stuff. Yes, we've had a little bit of a break, went away on holiday, we have come back, we're going to talk about it all in this video along with one or two other bits and pieces. So let's get on with the show. My name is still Jason and this is Table Talk. Well, yes, hello everyone. It's great to be back sat in front of the camera. It's interesting what a week's break does to the psychology of where you are and what you want to do. Although I've not strictly had a week off, and we'll talk about that during the course of the video. But yes, I couldn't say before I went away, because insurance companies are funny things. As much as they like to give you as much money as possible if things go wrong, if you do happen to mention that you're going on holiday and then your house gets, I don't know, broken into or something, then apparently it's your fault because you told everyone you'd gone away. So, you know, you can't mention this sort of stuff on social media, Facebook and that sort of stuff. I know a lot of people do post their holiday pictures as they go along, but yeah, you can cause yourself some trouble. So that's why I couldn't tell you in advance. So I have just spent a week in Italy, in Verona, would you believe? I hadn't been to Verona before, not my first time to Italy, I think my fourth trip to Italy actually. And Italy is probably my second favourite place to go outside of the UK, although it's quite a close run thing. My first one being Malta, and only really because of the family history I've got there, with it being an ex-British Navy base, and well, a British colony of course, and my grandfather spending a fair amount of time there, so I've got all sorts of connections there. Otherwise, you know, Italy, I probably would snag the prize, I would think. But yes, we had a week in Verona and I think we all enjoyed it. It's always a little bit hard to know. Yeah, it made me thought. I said right at the introduction that my name is still Jason. Well, there's a little bit of a story behind that, isn't there always? I was called Jason quite a few times in Italy, which my partner, was it my partner, or it might have been Daisy, pointed out sounded remarkably like Garçon, and that maybe I should become a waiter or something like that. But there was a time where I clearly remember I would have been about 13, I think, going for a walk to the shops with my mum and announcing to her, how that came about I don't know, announcing to her that I didn't like my name, and that as soon as I had the chance to change it, I was going to change it. Now, I'm sure my mum was deeply offended, as she chose my name. She chose both mine and my brother's names. She could have done a better job. Not that I don't like my name, I have no problem with my name, but my brother, his initials are also JP. When we were both getting our own mail a little bit later in life and both still living at home, there was always a bit of a rush to get to the mail, because all the mail for JP could be for either of us. So that wasn't well thought out from a parental point of view. Anyway, I did announce, we were walking to the shops, I remember it clearly, it was a nice sunny day, and I said that I didn't like my name, and my mum said, well, what would you change your name to then? And of course she put me on the spot, because I hadn't thought that comment through at all. So I just off the cuff went, I don't know, Elvis. I am so glad I couldn't change my name at that age. So yeah, I have no problem with my name now, and I feel like I might have dodged a shot in the foot there, baby. But yeah, it's a funny thing. My daughter's turned 13, and that thought came back to me. You know, what's she thinking at 13, and her view of the world compared to my view of the world in 1983. It was a very different world, wasn't it? So yeah, been a lot of thinking. So my daughter was 13 on Sunday, so that's my youngest daughter. So both of my daughters are in the age where, you know, talking is more sounds, and yeah, they just get a bit smellier and lounge around a lot, and everything is effort. You know, taking a plate of food upstairs isn't an effort, but bringing the empty plate down, it's like, oh my God, Dad, why would you make me do that? You know, we're at that stage. So yeah, interesting. And of course, I wasn't like that at all as a teenager, like we all weren't. So yeah, my youngest is now 13 and moved on, and that was on the Sunday. So we came back on the Saturday. Following day, she turned 13, but her birthday present was a new to her iPhone, which was a significant upgrade on what she had, and we gave her that just before we went on holiday so that she had that to mess around with, and she largely paid no interest to it all the way through the holidays because she didn't have an internet connection. So she couldn't play games on it. So yeah, back to the holiday. We digressed, as we usually do. We flew out on the Saturday. Neither of us had been to Verona before. So we've both been to Italy before. I've been several times. So the first time I did Italy was a walking holiday in the Dolomites on the Italian side there, and that was really, really nice. And that must be 25 years ago now, I guess. Then did Sorrento and that area, and Pompeii, and that little island, whatever it's called. Did all that sort of stuff. Again, I guess 24, 23 years ago maybe. And then I took Paula to Rome for her 50th birthday. Which would be 7 years ago now, blimey. So yeah, we took her for her 50th. She'd not been to Italy before. Oh, sorry, yeah, she had been to Italy once before, and we both fell in love with it, with Rome. I absolutely love Rome. So this holiday was seen by me, at least, as being the last family holiday with the four of us. Daisy, she's 20 at her next birthday. She's just finished college. She's just landed a job. She's got a boyfriend who's at university. She's not going to want to come on holiday with us. So I don't think we'll be seeing her coming on holiday with us again. So I thought, well, let's go and do something. We haven't been abroad since the back end of the pandemic, when we went to Disneyland in Paris. So I thought it'd be nice to go away as a family and go somewhere special. And Alice has only been to France once before, and that's her only foreign travelling. So it was really good to get her out to Rome. It was a little overwhelming for her the first day, but she settled into the groove. We had a really, really nice hotel. So, if you imagine Verona is a city with sort of trapped between a river, so it's in the crook of a river. So the river goes up and around it, and you know it's expanded over the river now. But old Verona is within that tip within the river. And in the centre of the old town, you've got an amphitheatre that's actually older than the Colosseum. In fact, the Colosseum's engineering was proved on this one. And And this one is complete. It's been in complete use for the last 2,000 years since it was built. It's been modified by the Romans a little bit, but otherwise has stayed complete. And now they do opera in there. So you've got that right in the centre with a park and this sort of open area. And then you've got all these little restaurants flanking that. Then you've got the main shopping street going off that, which has got all the big designer labels on there. It's absolutely heaving. So, you know, all the big designer labels, especially all the Italian ones, but not just Italian ones there. So if you've got plenty of money, that's the place to be. So you could see all the wealthy people up and down this street. Then the next street along was where our hotel was. And we had a room that was sort of divided into two rooms. So single bathroom, a bedroom and a separate bedroom with a door that closed, so it's like a separate room, and a big table in there, and you know, TV in each room, and coffee and mini fridge and all that sort of stuff. Really, really nicely done. And then there's a joint balcony between the two rooms. And you could stand on the balcony, look down the street and see the amphitheatre. 2-minute walk, if that. And strangely, the street was really quiet. There was a restaurant at one end, which is probably the most expensive food in Verona. And there was a couple of Michelin star places in Verona that we found. Yeah, really quiet street. And yet the next street along was absolutely bustling, and we could come out of the hotel and walk to our right, and then at the T-junction we could go into the quieter part of town, or we could go to an ice cream shop right on the edge of the main street. So we quickly learned that we could walk down the quiet streets and get to the other end of that busy street where there was a big market and what have you, and Juliet's balcony. So obviously Verona is famous for Shakespeare and Romeo and Juliet, which is based on a traditional Italian story, and you know, it's quite possible, according to the Italians, that Romeo and Juliet were actually real. And so you've got Romeo's house, which is privately owned and you can't go in, and Juliet's house, which you can go in and has got a balcony and a brass statue and all that sort of stuff. So my eldest daughter Daisy wanted to do that. But yeah, we went around the amphitheatre. It was great in the evening because it's opera week. The season starts this week, so they were doing sound checks and stuff. So we were getting free opera that we could hear from the balcony of our hotel room. We ate somewhere different every night, bar one. On one night we went back to the first restaurant because Alice had really enjoyed the brownie that she had for her pudding. But yeah, so we had all sorts of different food, really nice. Ate in the centre, ate in the market, ate in some of the back streets, had lunch. I didn't have to cook for a week, so that was lovely. We had one morning that was a bit wet, and that was the morning that we booked tickets to go to Lake Garda. So from we got up and it was absolutely belting down. We knew it was going to be raining that day, but we didn't know how hard. It was absolutely belting down, and we had planned to walk to the train station, which was a 15-minute walk. We'd done it the day before. We knew exactly what we were doing. We'd gone on one of those bus tours around the city, the hop on hop off, and we'd hopped off at the train station and walked back, so we understood how long it would take and where we were going. And then on that morning it was bucketing down, so I got the hotel to get us a taxi, and we took a taxi there. We got on the train, accidentally got on first class with our second class tickets, but it was one stop, 8 minutes on the train, and we were off, and no one checked our tickets. When we got back on at Lake Garda, there was a really helpful guard there, spoke fluent English, and he said, "Oh, don't forget to do your tickets at these ticket machines," and we hadn't done that on the way out, so we didn't know. So it didn't seem to make any difference to anything. So yeah, so it was a bit wet on the day we went to Lake Garda, but it cleared up in the afternoon, and it actually didn't rain on us. We didn't need raincoats or anything. But the views perhaps weren't as good as they could have been on Lake Garda, and we ended up being a little bit unimpressed with Lake Garda. So don't know, I certainly wouldn't rush back there. But Verona itself was brilliant. We did some of the museums, some great views, and yeah, just a thoroughly good time. Complete chill out, nice warm weather, really friendly people, great food, great coffee, and plenty of ice cream. What's not to love? Oh, and some pretty good cakes. I probably had the best cake of my life. And at €5 for an individual cake, you'd expect it to be. Yeah, an amazing cake. So we went into a cake shop, and the cakes were just stunning, and I said we can't pass this by. So yeah, but all in all it was a cheap holiday. We brought back nearly half the money we took with us to spend, because other than food there wasn't much to spend it on. Getting in the museums was super cheap, you know. I think the most expensive one was €20 for the 4 of us, which was the Natural History Museum, which also had some relics from Pompeii, so that was quite interesting. So yeah, there was some Roman stuff there still knocking around in the city. So yeah, a thoroughly good time had by all. So just before I went on holiday, we'd been talking about the fact that I'd sort of lost my mojo, particularly for plastic. And whilst I was away on holiday, I did do some video editing. So what I did, because I didn't have my desktop, only my laptop. So what I was able to do was to edit videos together without the intro and the outro and any music inserts and what have you, but I've been able to do the bulk. So all I've got to do is dice that up, put the intro outro on, and music if required, and then upload it, and then upload it onto YouTube. So I've got most of June probably edited now, so all I've got to do is start loading that up. So we're in a fairly good place with videos. So we managed to catch up. You know, I was waking up at 5:30 in the morning. Everyone else was getting up at 8:30 with a view to get breakfast at 9. So it was, you know, what am I going to do? So I'd walk across the room in the dark, get to my laptop that's all been set up ready. So all I've got to do is sit down, wake up the machine, and away you go. So that's what I was doing. So that was really positive on there, and managed to get some stuff together. And obviously having a break from modelling, the creative juices get going. So I'm raring to go. Now I have got some video footage sorted out, so when I'm thinking about what's coming up, let's say, well actually let's think about what we got up to last week, which will include everything that got up to today. That makes sense. Let's just quickly rewind and deal with last week, even though I wasn't really here. So when I got back on the Sunday, we put out a book review for members only. I said that's what we were going to be doing. A little short video, but a really good book, and you should look out for that. If you can get hold of one second hand that's hardback and bound, because now as you buy them they come spiral bound, and over time they're going to rip and what have you. They're not as good as they used to be. So if you can find a proper book version, that's the way to go. There is a second edition now, and if you can find that, that's also good. I have seen one, and I flicked through one. I don't own one, and I keep meaning to, and I don't. But there you go. So yeah, so that was Sunday, and then on Wednesday you will have got the review of HMS Prince from Airfix. Beautiful, beautiful ship, complete blingarama at the back, and one of the rarest ship models you can get from Airfix. Goes for silly money, usually 3 figures, but you know, if you really want to build it, it is worth it. And that has now been given to one of the members of the channel. Well, given's not quite the right word. He's purchased it off me, so I bought it. I've done a first review. He's then purchased it off me, and it's gone to a home that's going to absolutely enjoy building it, and he'd been after it for a long, long time. So I'm looking forward to pictures of that getting built at some point. So that then gets us up to last night, where we would have had Sherborn 23. I put Sherborn in because you've had a week's break from it, and I know 1 or 2 of you are right up to that point and are waiting for the next video, so I deliberately did that as soon as I could. So that's where we got up to in the week that's gone. That gets you up to today. So yeah, now obviously whilst I was away, not only am I not building models, I'm not ordering anything. Now, we are in dire need of a good model of Titanic. We've always needed a good model of the Titanic. It's one of the most popular nautical subjects you can get. Loads of manufacturers have made models of Titanics in a whole variety of scales, and yet we have never had a decent one. We've never had a good one. The most accurate one is the 1350, well, I was going to say mini art, it's not mini art, mini scale or something like that. I've got one. I've got one with all the bits and pieces to it. Is it Mini Craft? Could be Mini Craft. Which is very, very similar to the Academy one, which is probably the second best one, the Academy one. But both of those suffer from oversized details like wood graining on the decks. No, you don't need your decks to feel like an old rough wooden crate, really. So, you know, there's issues with all of them. Bits missing, bits oversized, you know, limitations of injection moulding and all that good stuff. Yeah, you know, rivets the size of a man's head and all that sort of stuff. So there's lots and lots of issues with all the models, and every time a new one comes out, like the Trumpeter 1200, you hope it's going to be great, and then you get let down. I mean, Trumpeter's Titanic hull looks like something that wouldn't be out of place shipping freight across the Pacific in 2025. It looks, you know, other than they've basically got the shape of the bow and the stern basically right, everything in between is just a square box, and it's just wrong, and it detracts from it. And I really wanted to get that 1200 Titanic, and I haven't, because the hull is such a mess, and the Olympic's no different. And I really want to do the Britannic, but the Britannic's going to be no different because they'll use the same basic design for the hull, even though there are differences, window differences, and the Olympic certainly is a different hull to Titanic. You know, it's just not, you know, there's too much to correct. So we haven't had a good one. And if you think about Titanics made by wood manufacturers, Billings Boats is completely dreadful, utterly dreadful and devoid of detail, and Amati's was pretty rubbish as well, and it had incorrect hull shape and really cheap and nasty way of doing the fittings, and it, you know, we just didn't have a good Titanic. But now we might have. So I've ordered it. Now, really interesting. So if you're interested in the new Amati 2025 Titanic, tread carefully, because I did a Google search for it to try and find where was the cheapest place to buy it, and I've actually bought it direct from Amati in Italy. Have an account with them anyway, and managed to register with them and get a 10% discount. And because it's over €400, they ship for free. So it was cheaper for me to buy it in direct from Italy than to get it in the UK. But when I googled 2025 Amati Titanic, Hobbies came up, which is a UK company. They do a lot of wooden kits, and for I think it was 400, well, they said reduced down to £470 or something like that, which was more expensive than I'd paid for the Amati direct from Amati. And it wasn't even the 2025 one. It was the older version, which is dreadful, and it was more expensive than the new beautiful version from which still has some inaccuracies. I've already spotted one massively overscale thing and one incorrection on the wheelhouse roof. So there's bound to be more stuff. If there's basic and obvious things wrong, there's bound to be subtle things wrong, isn't there? So anyway, that's winging its way to me. How long it'll take to get to me from Italy, I don't know. I would estimate about a week. Last time Amati sent me something direct from Italy, it got utterly battered, and the contents inside were absolutely battered. So I'm a little bit apprehensive about what I'm going to get, but I will just contact Amati and say, look, this is junk, send me another one, and they can keep sending them until they get one that's delivered intact. But yeah, we will see. Hopefully, fingers crossed, they pack it. I mean, last time they were sending me a load of tools and bits and pieces, and they didn't pack it very well. Anyway, so we've ordered it. So we've got a stash ad on the way, which links nicely into stash ads. So you will see I have a stash ad here, which isn't a stash ad that the channel's purchased or that I've purchased. This was a gift. So this was gifted to me by a very nice gentleman who is actually one of Peter Oxley's subscribers, not one of mine. And he was so grateful for the help and support I'd given Peter in doing his auction for Ukraine, that he was aware that I wasn't bidding on anything because I felt it was wrong to bid, that it looked a bit like an inside job, that I was either trying to bump up the bids to make more money or something like that. So I decided not to bid, and he was aware that of that. So he sent me this as a thank you for all of that, which is nice. And it's still factory sealed. It's not been opened. I've not looked in it yet, but well, actually, it might be taped down, but I'm not 100% sure. It looks like it might have been opened and taped down. Don't know, but look how interesting. We've got a half-track truck there. I've not built a half-track for years and years. So really interesting. So we'll do a first impressions of that. Thank you very much, sir, for sending me that. It's massively appreciated. So yeah, we do have a stash ad, and we've got one winging and it's on its way, and I'm excited about the Titanic because, well, we need a good one, and I'm hoping we might be there. So then we'd have to think about, well, are we gonna light it, and you know, what else are we going to do? It's a funny scale, 1:250, you know, so I'll have to have a look at the 3D printed boys and see if anyone's doing decent size, correct 1:250 size items for some of the stuff. We'll have to see when we get it what I think of it. But there you go, that's two new things in the modelling thing. So even when I take a week off, stuff happens, doesn't it? Right then, so what's coming up in the week ahead? Well, where are we? I'm just having a look at my plan. Monday we've got a tour review for members only, and then on Wednesday we've got Sherborn episode 24. We're well into the rigging now, and I think you've got maybe 2 more episodes left. Don't fully know. I want to do the final reveal as one separate one, and I'm probably gonna, I've got taken a load of pictures and I'll probably do a voiceover with that one, I think. Then on Friday we've got Junkers Part 4, which I believe it's February that you saw Part 3. So that'll be good. And then that gets you back to Table Talk next week. So we're back up and running, firing on all cylinders, and I'm sort of in the view of, let's get this Junkers done, break my lack of mojo for plastic, because I'm really looking forward to the Tamiya Panzer 1, and I want to get into that and get experimenting with these Tamiya enamels. We're going to talk about paint systems, but not in this one. Maybe we'll talk about paint systems in next week's. So there we go. Right, so that's where up to next week. Q&A. So these are some questions that were asked back in April by the members, and I've been holding them back while we've been doing some of the questions that have been asked from the channel, but I haven't had any questions for a while. So if you've got a question for me, modelling related preferably, whether that be how to separate glued parts, or how to best glues to use, or how to clean your abrasives, or anything like that, just pop it in the comments below and we can address it in the next Table Talk. Right then, let's get through some of these questions, and the first one is from Neil, and he says, Proxon, worth the money? And I can tell you from my experience, absolutely, far superior to any other brand I've used, and that's not just, I mean, this is my my drill of choice, just happens to be hanging off the bottom off the edge of my desk, because, well, we're sanding and we're going to be using the barrel on this soon. I've had this now for a few years. This is the what is it, the FB2 240E. There is another one which is more commonly used, but at the time I was a bit strapped for cash, and this was slightly cheaper. And this has lasted twice as long as my last power tool, which was whatever that brand is, that Dremel. Yeah, twice as long as a Dremel. Problem I've had with the last two Dremels I've had is the bushes burning out, and problems with the motor. I had a case crack on one of them as well. This is like the day I bought it, and I've had it for years, and it just keeps going and going and going. It's dead easy to clean, it's dead easy to use, and it's got all sorts of different attachments you can use, the same attachments as you get. But that also applies to table saw, the two sanders I've got with them, my manual drill press that I have with them. They are all high quality tools, and they're made for the modeler in mind, not really the plastic modeler, but more the model engineer. So, you know, people who are making small sit-on steam trains and that sort of stuff. So they are really robust. It's good quality stuff. The plastics are good quality, the motors are great quality. They don't use cheaper engineering corner cutting, if you like, whereas other brands certainly do. So I would keep away from non-branded ones. Dremel are okay, probably better than a lot of the non-branded ones, but if you can afford Proxon, I wouldn't even look at another brand personally. So Gary's asked me a question about shelf queens, and I'm not sure if he's trying to be competitive here or not, but he says, how many shelf queens do you currently have? Mine currently runs at 2. Well, let me just count them, one sec. I've got 5 plastic ships as queens. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 wooden ships. I have a 116 tank, radio controlled Tiger tank from Tamiya as a queen. I have one aeroplane, the Tamiya Mosquito, which is a queen, and thanks to Edward completely ruining the model for me, and I have a diorama that I started, North Africa diorama, with several of the Tamiya 135 long range desert group vehicles and some figures. So they re-released them with figures, and I was going to do a little convoy, so I started that a few years back. So what's that? 9, 10, 11, 12, and I think Gary's got 2 at the back in April. He's probably built them now. He does about 50 models a year. If you're in the members area, you know this. He must be averaging 4 models a month, 1 a week, I would guess. Don't know how he does it. Okay, next question came from Wayne Ball. Thank you, Wayne. Rigging a biplane, cotton fishing line, wire, best practice to achieve good results. Depends slightly on your scale. So you can, some kits will come with photo etch bracing wires, and they're okay for British aircraft as a rule, because British aircraft, the cables tend to be flat like photo etch. So when you actually look at them, they're aerodynamic and what have you, but they're not round like a thread, whereas the German ones tend to be round like a thread, and I think the French ones are as well. Not so much of an expert on those, really. Well, not really an expert anyway, but if you can get photo etch ones for British ones, British biplanes, then I generally will use those, especially if they've been designed specifically to fit with that. Failing that, depends on the scale. At 172, I will generally either not bother or use elastic, so something like Easy Line or Infini do. Is it Infini? Yeah, it is Infini do. It always feels a bit bizarre, really. They do the nylon line, the stretchy elastic line, in different sizes, but you change the size when you pull it, so it seems a little bit irrelevant, but they certainly do. They sell it as ship rigging wire in different gauges, but like I say, the more you pull it, the more you change the gauge. So for 172, I would do that. For some elements of 148, I will use that, and then I quite like fishing line, and on so you can get away with fishing line on some areas of 148, and in other areas you might find it easier to use that, so I can switch between the two, but on 132 I absolutely will use fishing line with turnbuckles that I've either made or purchased. So when I did the Gotha, for example, you saw me use Bob's Buckles, turnbuckles, but you can make those yourself. It's just a twisted eye, basically, metal eye, and I used fishing line, and that works for me. It's got a bit of rigidity, it's a little bit easier to work with, and it looks better. And if you remember, I was using brown and colouring it in. On 148, if you think about the Walrus Silver Wings, did a combination, so I used fishing line on some elements of the wing, but in the centre bit where you've got a bit more complexity and around the engine and the wheels, I think I used Easy Line, and then on 172 I pretty much use Easy Line if I'm going to rig, and I'm 50-50 on whether I bother at that scale. I can't remember what I did on the Bulldog. Isn't that bad? I think I used Easy Line on the Bulldog. Yeah, so it all depends. If you, the larger the scale, the easier it becomes to use fishing line, which is generally my preference just because of the way it behaves. I generally don't use cotton because cotton frays. You've got to tie it. You can't glue it as well, and yeah, it never looks right ultimately for me, cotton. So I don't generally tend to use cotton threads. Wire, it can be a double-edged sword. If you put a kink in it or something like that, it's difficult to get it out. Wire has its own behaviour characteristics, which means you can't always get it taut, you know, and it sort of does what it wants to do. So then you've got to heat it all up, and then, you know, it becomes a bit like lead wire or fuse wire. It's too easy, too malleable. So generally I keep away from thread, and generally I keep away from wire. So fishing wire and elastic wire is what I generally go for. Okay, interesting question here from Jeff, probably known better to most of you as Captain Charlemagne, Captain Charlemagne's channel, who, if you've not seen him around for a little bit, he's been on Star Trek model building thing. So anyway, he asks, what are my top 5 favourite builds since starting my channel? That's interesting. It would be interesting to see if I can remember them all, to be honest. Well, let's see. From an aircraft point of view, I have to say the Gota, Wingnut Wings Gota, because it's probably one of my favourite plastic model builds of all time. I've only completed one wooden kit on the channel, which is the Sherborn. So, but that is up there in one of my favourite wooden kit builds of all time for various reasons. So I think we'd go with those two. Then outside of that, I really enjoyed the Airfix. Gonna forget the name of it. Begins with A. Forget the name of it, but I quite enjoyed building that. We did a lot of weathering on the inside and what have you. I did really enjoy the Bulldog as well, actually, and I ended up buying a second one of those. So that was a lot of fun. Then we did the diorama with the tiger on, and as much as the tiger was a dreadful model in many ways, I did thoroughly enjoy the finished diorama composition, and it was nice to share some of that building weathering and what we did with that. Avro Anson was what I was looking for, but actually, if I think about it, and for all different reasons, the Mini Arc Tractor was great fun to build. I enjoyed building that immensely, and we did a load of weathering on it, and it came together really nicely. That was a lovely little build series. Then we had, oh, it's so difficult. It's so difficult. There was the Megami that we built, the Tamiya Megami with as the aircraft version after she'd been converted later in the war. That was a really successful build series. We built it straight out of the box, got a lot of love, everyone enjoyed that. I enjoyed building that as a result of that, so that would have to be in there. Then it gets really tough because I really enjoyed building the Airfix 148 Tropical Hurricane. I thought that was a really good build series, got a lot of love. We did some weathering and what have you, and people really seemed to enjoy that one. I really enjoyed doing the new Ethics Spitfire starter set, which we did in enamels, just to prove all the acrylic lovers how wrong they are. You know, that was a lot of fun. So what have we got? Gaahleri, Sherborn, Tractor, Magami, and then do you know what? B17. And the B17, not so much because of the build, quite so much, which was a fun build, but because it was such a successful group build and so many people came along with that. So I think that would be my 5, to be honest. I'd be interested to know what other people's view were on their favourite 5 builds that I've done, because surprisingly quite a few. Now, I have been asked a question by Phil Jolly about reviewing the new formula Vallejo paints. Apparently it's had mixed reviews, which is interesting because Vallejo have put a lot of time and effort into improving their paints, and they've taken a market leading product which in my mind is superior to AK and superior to MIG as a rule, and done a lot of work to improve it, to make it a better performing paint, especially for modelers. So you know, there's a whole thing here about modelers and negativity that we're going to talk about in a future table talk. But I would be surprised. Now the problem is I don't really have any of the new formula. I think I've got 1 of the new formula, and I had no real issues with it. The problem is I've so invested with the ICM paints. I've got the full range of the ICM acrylics. I'm not really intending to buy any more of the Vallejo paints. I'm running down what I've got. I'm not really buying any more MIG paints. I'm running down what I've got. I generally didn't buy AK paints anyway because I had so many issues with the ones that I've had in the past. But I have recently bought some for wooden ship painting, interestingly, and I'm interested to see how those go. So we'll talk about those when we use them. I've only sort of compared them from a colour match point of view. But as you know, I prefer enamels because they're more flexible, and particularly for brush painting you get a far superior finish, and actually I'd argue you get a far superior finish with airbrush, and also easier to use, easier to clean your airbrush. Yeah, and the new generation enamels generally smell a lot less than they used to when we were younger. So yeah, so the one I've tried, which is the liquid metal, which you've seen me use on 2 builds now so far, which was the Elizabethan and the Royal Barge. I absolutely loved it. It was up there with the best metallic paint I have ever used. But I can't say that's a comparison particularly. Now, I really liked Vallejo metallic colours before. So my silver wings was done in silver, and I've used it on other builds, and people have gone, oh, what's the silver you've used with that? It looks great. And it's always Vallejo, and then people go, oh right, well I don't use Vallejo paints. Well, why are you asking me what the paint is if you're not going to then go out and, you know, open your mind with it? So it's an interesting one. I have different paint systems that I like for different things, and actually one of my favourite acrylic ranges is Life Colour for 20th century ships. They're beautiful paints. They're everything that Tamiya paints, acrylic paint, should be. And I think we've talked about that before. So I have so many paint systems, I'm trying to reduce them down, and Vallejo isn't one I'm going to buy into particularly. If I was doing a lot of figure painting, then maybe that I would consider it. But I'm intending, if I get on with the Tamiya enamels, to buy into the Tamiya enamels and phase out my Humbrol acrylics, which are you know, in the main are good paints, but I'll use the enamels over the acrylics anytime. Keep with my colour coat enamels because they're beautifully matched to modern warships. Keep with my ICM acrylics because they work really, really well, and all the others I will sort of get rid of. Whether I'm going to move from Caldercraft paints for my wood ships to the AK paint system that I recently purchased is yet to be seen, to be honest. Now, there was a question, sort of a question here, and I don't know whether it was intended to be a question for everyone, but we will talk about it because it's relevant to those of you building along with the Sherborn. So it says on page 55 in the Sherborn manual, you can see that the top yard is also connected to a thin bolt and blocks. I guess it was just missing from the plans. This comes from Espen Torgsten. Thank you very much for the question, but I think you're wrong. There is a statement in the build manual where it says some of the images come from a different model that's not Sherborn, but it's similar. And I think the Sherborn plans are correct, and that what you've got is a royal yard, which means it doesn't have the thimbles. So at one point in the build I was thinking, you know, they've missed this off, and I need to add the thimbles and do that. And you've got enough thimbles to do it. If you want to do it, you certainly could, and then you could belay it off. But actually I think it's a royal yard which wouldn't have them. Let me show you. So if we look in this book here, we can see royal yard without lift. Now there's lots of different ways of rigging these things for all sorts of different reasons, depending on the type of sail, depending on all sorts of other factors as well. So I suspect there's probably some clue lines missing because the rigging's been massively simplified to make it beginner level, but still make it look intricate enough, like you've got some rigging to look at. So that's the compromise to make it a beginner's. So I think it's correct. I think Sherborn is correct. Chris knows a lot more about this than I do, I would suspect. So, you know, I think that Sherborn's correct, and the photograph on page 55 is of another ship. Now if you wanted to put them on, I don't think it does any harm, but I think there's probably some different clue line arrangement coming off that spar that's just not been depicted for simplification, is my guess. So there you go. That is all the questions I've got outstanding for Q&A. So I think that leaves us done for this week. So for those of you that are interested, I'm going to leave you some of my photographs from Verona, and until next week, you enjoy your modelling and take care, look after yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon. Bye for now. you.